Hello friends, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365, and in this video I'm going to go over some movie sequels that are still not on physical 4K disc. So I was going over my movie collection the other day, and I noticed a lot of movies that I have that are on 4K, that are the first of their series, still don't have their subsequent sequels arriving on the 4K format. I did a very similar video like this about 2 or so years ago, and I'm happy to say about 80 or 85% of the movies I talked about in that video have arrived on 4K. So that bodes well for not only the format, but for potential lists that we all may have for movies that we would like to see come to 4K. So I thought I would go over a bunch of film sequels that I really think deserve a 4K release. Hopefully one day we'll see a lot of these happen. And of course, as always, I encourage you to put in the comment section below, what movie sequels would you love to see arrive on 4K? And finally, this list is not in any particular order, so a number one is not a number one. These are just randomly put together. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's dive right into my first pick. So this one I want to talk about was actually in that last video, so I thought I would port it over here. And we still haven't heard or seen any indication that it's coming to the 4K format anytime soon. I'm talking about 300 Rise of an Empire. Of course, the original Zack Snyder film arrived on 4K a couple of years ago, and I felt was a really solid offering on the format. So no reason to believe that the sequel couldn't follow in the same footsteps. I think this one, eventually they'll get around to. It's just a matter of, checking off a list over at Warner Brothers. But I think the film itself stands on its own. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Eva Green, who isn't. But yeah, I would love to see this movie arrive on 4K. And once again, if you go back to the original 300 on the format, you know what to expect. So I'm hopeful we'll see it one day. It's a little unfair to put this next one on the list, considering the first movie was just recently released on the 4K format from Sony. I'm talking about the sequels to Insidious. Now, the first movie looked and sounded great. It got a nice Atmos upgrade. I think the additional sequels would also benefit as well. Now, what makes me nervous about requesting these is the fact that the recent film, Insidious: The Red Door, just got a standard Blu-ray. So it could go either way. I would personally like to see 2 and 3. I wasn't a big fan of The Last Key, but, for completionist's sake, I know a lot of fans would like all the movies on 4K. So it could go either way. If we're going to ever see these on the 4K formats, I know horror sells really well, and there's more than one horror film on this list. So yeah, Insidious and all the sequels, I think, would really benefit from a 4K bump. This next one was in a recent video I did that talked about 2023 Blu-rays that should get 4K releases, so it's also technically a sequel. I thought I would include it in this video. So I'm talking about Kenneth Branagh's film, A Haunting in Venice. We have the first 2 movies on 4K. We have A Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. Both are gloriously, on 4K, which is great. But for whatever reason, this one is just not. It's only available on 4K digital. We as physical media collectors like a little bit of consistency, especially when you're, somebody like me that separates their 4Ks on the shelf versus their Blu-rays. I don't like to mix them together. I know some do, but for me personally, not so much. But yeah, I watched the movie on 4K digital. I think it would make for an outstanding looking 4K disc. But this is probably going to remain, unfortunately, on the wish list. But I would like to see it, if not for any other reason than some, collectible consistency. Going back in time a little bit, this next one definitely deserves a 4K upgrade, if for no other reason than to improve upon the very dated Blu-ray release. So for this one, Gremlins 2 absolutely needs a 4K upgrade. I think this is another one as a matter of when more than if. I haven't heard any rumblings or inkling that this is going to come to the 4K format, but it would be great to revisit this with a fresh coat of paint. And I would not even say no to an Atmos upgrade. I think the first movie definitely could have benefited from it as well. But, for Gremlins 2, let's give it the warm welcome that it deserves. And I would like to see this one on 4K, just for the fact that it is a very underrated movie. So I'm hoping we'll see it one day on our shelves. A couple of years ago, Shout Factory released Pitch Black starring Vin Diesel. And if you're unaware, it actually spawned a couple of sequels, but they're not typical sequels that you would see. But I think the subsequent follow-ups are good to varying degrees. I like Chronicles of Riddick quite a bit. Riddick, the movie, also has its moments, but I really enjoy the world that these movies are in, and it would be great to see them get a 4K upgrade. I've also heard rumblings that they're going to make another movie, that every once in a while you hear something about that, but I really think that Chronicles of Riddick in particular would definitely benefit. It's a cool sci-fi type of film. I think it would look fantastic, really bring out some nice colors, and once again, let's give it an Atmos upgrade. I think that would benefit the film really well. So Chronicles of Riddick and Riddick, I think would make for really solid looking 4Ks. This next one was also on the previous video I did, and it still shocks me that even though we got the first movie, I thought it was a clear indication that the follow-ups would be coming very soon, more so the second one than the third. In this case, Blade 2 absolutely needs a 4K upgrade. I mean, this is one of the more underrated films, it seems to be today, because I think it's arguably really on par with the first movie, which I really love. We're not even going to talk about Blade Trinity, but I know there are a lot of people that have it, and it is a sequel, and for those that enjoy it, I would love to see them get a 4K release. But it still amazes me that we haven't gotten any word of a 4K for, at the very least, Blade 2. I thought we were really going to have that on our shelves long before now, so it's kind of odd that it still isn't here. But, Guillermo del Toro, you have that great, aesthetic, and I think it would really benefit from a fresh coat of paint on 4K. I love the film. So, yes, even Blade Trinity, for those that want it, can get a 4K upgrade, but let's see these sequels happen, hopefully sometime soon. My next pick has kind of an interesting history on the 4K format, as the original film came out on 4K not too long ago, and a couple of the later sequels have arrived on the format, but still everything in between is a little bit missing as far as collectors go. The Saw franchise. The first movie, fantastic, especially the Atmos. That is some top-notch Atmos. And of course we have Saw X, which recently came out, the latest film of the series, Jigsaw on 4K, but the movies in between are still missing. Just for, they're varying degrees of quality, or I will give you that, but it would be great to have every movie available for those that want whatever one they want on 4K. I think Lionsgate is really sitting on a gold mine here, because they start putting these out once every 6 months or so. I think everybody would buy them, especially if you're a fan of the series. So I don't know if we're going to ever see the additional Saw sequels on 4K, but I, for one, would love to see it happen. Every once in a while, in an occasional video, I get a request or a comment about a movie that they would love to see arrive on 4K, and I got to admit that this one also is something that I would love to see. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and I think to a degree, Bill and Ted's Face the Music would also benefit as well. Now, I believe that the third one is on 4K in international territories, and I think it is 4K digitally, but a physical 4K release would be most welcome. And I'm not quite sure if Bogus Journey is in 4K digitally. I think it is. But we are physical media collectors. If you're a fan of the channel, you watch this because we're physical media collectors. So let's get physical 4K discs of the sequels that are available here in the States. I, for one, would love to see, at the very least, Bogus Journey. I wasn't a big fan of Face the Music, but, if you're a fan of all three, getting them all on physical 4K should absolutely be on your most wanted list. The next one, I suspect probably Arrow Video will be handling this one, maybe even this year, because they did release the original film a couple years back, and it is an outstanding 4K. It was one of my favorite catalog releases of that year. So RoboCop 2 especially, and RoboCop 3 should arrive on 4K. I absolutely would love to see these. More so the second one. I don't know if you're noticing a pattern. I seem to like the second movies more than the third in a lot of these. But, RoboCop 3 has its fans. I'll allow, just go ahead and have that. But for me, just give me RoboCop 2. I think this is a really solid sequel. It doesn't have any of that, quite satire of the first film. It's really dialed back. It's more of an action thing, but I still enjoy it. And I love, the antagonist in that one. So if Arrow Video handles this one, I would be rest assured that it would look gorgeous and also give it an Atmos upgrade, just like the original movie. So RoboCop 2 and 3 should arrive on 4K. I know a lot of people would love to see it. This next one, I firmly believe, is a when as opposed to an if, and we may even see it this year. Wayne's World 2. It's funny because when this originally came out, I was not the biggest fan of it. It took me a bunch of years and a couple of rewatches to really appreciate it. It's still nowhere near as good as the original, but I think the film is very entertaining. And when Paramount released the original movie with the corrected track from Stairway to Heaven chords, I know that went a long way. Goodwill is awesome, when it comes to that. And I think the transfer was really good. I know a lot of people get nervous with certain Paramount titles, but I thought Wayne's World was handled beautifully. So no reason to think that Wayne's World 2 would be treated any differently. So once again, I think this is a matter of when as opposed to if. So in the first half of last year, the first 4 movies of the Rocky franchise arrived on 4K to, let's just say, varying results quality-wise. But, of course, missing are Rocky V and Rocky VI, or Rocky Balboa. I really think, when it comes to these movies, a lot of people would love to add them to their collection. I'm not such a big fan of Rocky V, and there's rumors of Stallone working on an additional cut of that particular movie, which I would definitely like to see. But for me, more importantly, Rocky Balboa would absolutely love it, because that one is such an interesting style. It has that kind of a gritty look for the first half of the movie, and then when it gets to the fight scenes, it cleans up considerably. So I think that would make for an interesting 4K release. Once again, I hear rumors about tinkering on the 5th film, and there's also apparently in France a 6-movie collection. I don't know if that actually ever came out. But we haven't heard any recent news about Rocky 5 or 6. I think these are coming eventually, whether it is 2024 or beyond. Eventually, I think they are going to arrive. So yes, Rocky 5 and 6, let's complete that collection. So we will see it hopefully very soon. As I mentioned, horror does really well on 4K. And going on 2 years ago now, Paramount released the first Friday the 13th on the 4K format. Once again, questionable results in the quality. But we have not heard any, rumor or whisper of the additional sequels arriving on 4K. Now, if you're familiar, we know that the first 4 movies were given a 4K scan. So at the very least, the first 4 movies in the franchise should arrive on the format, one would think. But once again, we have heard nothing about any of the additional sequels. I would love all the movies to arrive on 4K, personally. I would definitely be a fan of that. So who knows if we'll see it. I know a lot of people would buy it, myself included. Going back to Paramount for a moment, this is a pick where it's a very unusual case. And in fact, I think the only one on this list to have this kind of criteria, where the first 3 movies are on 4K, the back half of the movies are on 4K. It's just that little middle child 4th movie is still missing. Of course, Scream 4. This is the one that I firmly, if I were a betting man, would think that this year is definitely coming out, because Paramount has been releasing one Scream film from the earlier movies on 4K for the past couple years. This year is Scream 4's turn. So I won't spend too much time on it. This is probably coming at the back half of this year. So yeah, Scream 4 on 4K. Let's get all the movies on the format. Of course, this next one is going to be I would say, one of the most requested amount of sequels to arrive on physical 4K. It is available on 4K digitally. The Die Hard sequels, owned by, unfortunately, Disney/20th Century. The likelihood of getting physical 4K releases of this are not great. We'll see if Disney's really going to be turning a corner with outputting more physical media. I know everybody in my circle would absolutely buy all the sequels. I'm a huge fan of Die Hard 2 and Die Hard with a Vengeance. The later movies, not so much. But, once again, if you're a completionist, you want to see all the movies on physical 4K. So Die Hard, I know a lot of people would love to see all these on physical media. So let's hope it happens. Maybe we'll get lucky. So I was originally going to do an honorable mentions list of sequels that are out on 4K, but the original movies are not. But I have quite a few titles. So I think I'm going to make a separate video just on that concept. But, it's just weird how that would particularly happen in the first place. But, it's actually an interesting discussion. So look for that video in the coming weeks. So for the last pick of most requested sequels that should arrive on 4K, believe it or not, I get probably asked about this one more than any of the other movies on this list, even Die Hard. Home Alone 2. For some reason, people love this movie. I think it's fine. I think Home Alone 2 Lost in New York is a fine movie. And I would love to pair them with, of course, the original movie and the second one. You have the later sequels, which don't really focus on Kevin. But I know, once again, if you're a completionist, you're going to want all the movies. But for some reason, Home Alone 2 is the one that most people want and talk about, at least when it comes to, communication on my channel. So Home Alone 2, unfortunately, is another physical offering that would have to come from Disney/20th Century. But I don't know. I'm optimistic that this one will get a physical release down the line. It does come in 4K digital, but physical media collectors, we like what we like. So Home Alone 2 is one that I think a lot of people would pick up. So those are some movie sequels that I would love to see arrive on the 4K format. Hopefully in one way, shape, or form down the line, all of these will be available on physical media. I will go ahead and leave a link to the video I talked about a couple years ago. And if you want to see all the ones that I talked about that did come around on 4K, go ahead and check that one out. But now, of course, it is your turn in the comments section. What movie sequels would you love to see arrive on 4K? Sound off down below. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. So until next time, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365. I will see you at the movies.